And welcome back to Age of Empires 2 Definitive Edition History Lessons. Today we are going to go over the decline of feudalism, political changes. By the beginning of the late Middle Ages, Western Europe had been divided into feudal holdings of various sizes. Kings atop feudal hierarchies did not exercise a strong central authority, and nations existed as cultural groups, not political entities. By the late Middle Ages, strong central authority controlled England, Spain, Portugal, and France. Political powers in those areas had been wrestled away from the local feudal lords. William the Conqueror established the first of the strong European monarchies after winning the throne of England in 1066. Following his victory at Hastings and 5 more years of fighting to break the remaining resistance, he began taking steps to consolidate his power. He kept 1/6 of England as royal land. Half of the rest was given as fiefs to Norman barons, who were direct vassals. He gave 1/4 of the land to the church, and the remainder was divided among the Anglo-Saxons. The entire feudal hierarchy was forced to swear fealty to him as a liege lord. He claimed ownership of all castles, prohibited wars between lords, and made loyal coinage the only legal money. These were important first steps in the decline of feudalism, although they could not always be enforced, especially by later kings of lesser ability than William. In the 12th century, England's King Henry II created the Chancery and Exchequer, the beginnings of civil service. The Chancery kept records of laws and royal transactions. The Exchequer was the treasury. Both offices were not hereditary, making it easy to remove unwanted officials. The staffs of the new civil service were paid a salary rather than given a fief, making them dependent only on the king. In 1215, the unpopular King John of England was forced to sign the Magna Carta, a feudal document that made the king subject to the laws of the land and required that the barons have a voice in the king's decision through a great council. Wording of the Magna Carta led to important interpretations in later centuries, including the concept of no taxation without representation. When a later English king ignored the Magna Carta, the barons seized power in 1264 and ruled temporarily through an expanded Great Council called the Parliament. The new Parliament included not only the barons and high-ranking churchmen, but also representatives from the large towns. Although this parliamentary government was short-lived 15 months, Parliament itself could not be suppressed or ignored. From this period on, only Parliament could repeal laws it had passed. No taxes could be imposed without its approval. When kings needed money in the short term, during the 100 Years' War for example, they were often forced by the Parliament to concede more power in exchange. Parliament and the civil service continued to grow in importance, and they proved capable of running the country, regardless of the current king's ability or any temporarily rebellion by the nobility. Jesus. Well, the king's civil service and parliament were pushing down on the power of barons from above. Pressure was also rising from the bottom of the feudal hierarchy. Several factors worked towards freeing the serfs from their contracts with their lords, including increasing town populations, cessation of barbarian raids, and a fearful plague that struck Europe in the 14th century. The Black Death. The plague that became known as the Black Death struck Europe suddenly and with devastating effect in the middle 14th century. It moved west from Central Asia, appearing in the Black Sea area in 1346. It spread southwest into the Mediterranean, and then up and around the North Atlantic coast into the Baltic. By 1348, it was in Spain and Portugal. By 1349, England and Ireland. By 1351, in Sweden, and by 1353, in the Baltic states and Russia. Only remote and sparsely populated areas were spared. Between a third and half of the population of Europe, the Middle East, North Africa, and India died, based on modern estimates of loss. The Black Plague was probably a variety of the bubonic plague, a bacterial infection still encountered today and still dangerous. The bacteria were carried in the saliva of fleas that had sucked the blood of infected rats. The fleas jumped to the human host when infected rats died, and the bacteria spread rapidly in the human bloodstream. The plague took its name from the most hideous symptom: large, black, and painful swellings that oozed blood and pus. Victims developed a high fever and became delirious. Most died within 48 hours, but a small minority were able to fight off the infection and survive. Entire towns were depopulated and the social relation between serf and lord fell apart. People who could farm or make things more were valuable. The move to cities accelerated once the plague had passed. Alright, that's it for this one. I'll be back next time with a Renaissance. See you then.